Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Kevy Yarns with Big Will. Of course, you're here with Big Will. Just wanted to give a shout out to all my supporters and all my fans out on social media platforms. Been hearing some positive reviews for my last few episodes. But as well, I've cracked 50 subscribers, almost up to 60, if I remember correctly. So yeah, just want to give a shout out to all those supporters. Definitely feeling the love, and of course, with you guys, my podcast probably wouldn't have gotten off the ground. So thank you to all those supporters. And next stop is 1 million. Far out again. Baby steps, guys. But what I wanted to yarn about today, no special guest today. It's just another episode of just myself yarning. Of course, even though it's just me, I'm always open to reading comments that you leave down in the comment section. But as well, if you want to message me on any of my social media platforms, whether it's Instagram or Messenger, I get message requests if you're not friends with me, of course, and you listen to me. Or if I don't follow you back, just shoot me a message. I always check my message requests. It's usually with bloody, those hacking pages or, certain type of them scam sort of ones. So always check it because I never like to leave notifications unread. So always try and get into those message requests and get into those. So yeah, send me a message of any questions or any sort of reviews or any comments that you'd like to make. Of course, if you don't have a YouTube account, it's totally fine. So yeah, but what I wanted to yarn about today, guys, and it's just not something that's popped up recently. It's not a trend. It's something that, just in terms of the Townsville community, it has affected Townsville for a few years now. I would assume that it's now going up to 5 to probably 8 years now. And this was around the time where I probably was still in the last couple of years of my high school career or high schooling life. Has now continued on to me working within this community. And youth crime, that's what I want to talk about. Because youth crime in Townsville, it is relatively bad. Just in terms of North Queensland as a whole, I do believe that Townsville is sort of the peak. Cairns and Townsville, in terms of youth crime rates, are pretty similar, but I think Townsville just has that edge. Mackay as well has their own youth crime, however, it's not as bad. If I do remember correctly, I just don't hear much about Mackay. Of course, if I have any Mackay listeners, please give your feedback and bring some stuff to the table where just to educate me as well if I'm being ignorant in this. Mount Isa, I do hear that they have a few stuff out there in terms of youth crime or youth issues that they have to address every day, every night. So youth crime in Townsville. Definitely why I want to bring it up is, I've worked with youths now for 3.5 years within the community, within the Townsville community. And I just wanted to give my reflections, but as well as my personal experiences whilst working with young people. And just in terms of reflections, so just recently here in Townsville, if you haven't seen in the news, we had a young fella found in the Ross River. It was just due to, I think it was, he was running from a crime scene that he was part of. And then, divers were in there and they, got him out of there. But, prayers and condolences to the family of that young person. Because, yes, it is a life lost. Not necessarily in the best circumstances, but, there's no such thing as death in best circumstances. But, it is a life lost, most definitely. However, it's a young life lost. That young fella, 17, 18, he may have committed crimes. He may have been part of something, during the last hours of his time here on Earth. But, what I want to what I want people to think of is that he was so young that, life didn't give him the chance to change his lifestyle. It didn't give him the chance to get back on the right track. And then a couple of years ago, a few deaths in Townsville with the car crash where, kids much younger than the young person the other day passed away. And it's sad to think that so many people say that, it was deserved of that young person to die in the Ross River because of what he did. If I can remind you guys, if you do listen to my podcast, is you can't replace a life lost. It just doesn't happen. It's physically impossible. You can replace a car, Of course, then in terms of that trauma that you get when you get something stolen from you, it can be healed, however, but there will be always underlying issues with that trauma. So definitely I understand the trauma, because I was also a victim of, it's not like I'm talking from inexperience or I'm talking out of my arse here. I had my car stolen from me last year too. Still yet to get a new car. And the reason why that is just because what's the point of me getting a new car if there is a chance someone could steal it again? I know that's a defeatist mindset, but, there's that underlying trauma where something was stolen from you. Of course, for those that probably don't understand something that gets stolen from them personally, you're not going to understand. But yeah, definitely, in terms of the youth crime that's happening within Townsville, it's not that it's gotten worse. I'd say it's on the same rate. And what I've come to find is that there are only a few certain people, probably like young people, probably about 13 to 17 young people within the Townsville community. You think of it, 13 to 17, like the total amount of young people that actually commit the crimes and are like the leaders of the certain groups here in Townsville, there's only that amount. So whenever they are caught, and this is the trend, like whenever they are caught and, put in the detention centres, no crime happens. Because what you find is these ringleaders, they're so confident and so set in their ways of them committing crimes, is that they will have a group around them, but not necessarily someone that's a right-hand person to pick up the operation once they get caught. Okay, so that's just something to, work towards. And I think that's probably what, the police service are doing, or, a few of the youth services around towns, is that they're trying to help out the ones that are very high risk and go from there. Because what you come to find is that so many services, so many different strategies put in place that hasn't worked. Okay, but, and this is something that I wanted to address as well, is that you see it in the comments on social media, but as well as you get it from people in the suits in Parliament House, is that when young people do this is the the same tune that they play. Whenever a crime is committed by a young person, there needs to be punishment. Yeah, I agree with that to a certain point, because you can only punish a young person for so much. You see in the detention centres in the Northern Territory, it's like, it's not going to get to that level, because it should not get to that level. A young person should never go through what the young people had gone through in Dondale. And it's just ridiculous. But and this is my mindset on the whole youth crime stuff, guys, it's that you cannot punish a young person for doing something they think is normal. Now, not condoning their actions at all, but these young people, most of them, have a self-destructive approach to life. Now, bear with me. Self-destructive, as we all know, it's you hurt yourself in certain ways. You explode on yourself where It may not just hurt you, but it hurts the family, friends around you. Okay? So what I see with these young people is that, let's just say, and that's the thing too, that we need to take into account. These young people, most of them are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. I'm not going to go past that fact. Some of them are non-Indigenous, white Africans, some of them are in these groups here in Townsville. It's not just Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, even though that's the novel that people are telling themselves. And that then gives people the right to harass any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander young person here in this community. But that's just another conversation, guys. Definitely for another episode. But what I was trying to say is that with these young people, it's they go through so much trauma and so much grief and loss in their short life, is that like I said, they're self-destructive, is that they will continue to hurt themselves until they don't feel any more pain. So punishment, you're just adding on to the pain, you're not ending it. You're just adding on to what they want in life, and that's to feel wanted. And that word wanted is definitely a big thing for these kids, because most of these kids, they're neglected by family. They are neglected by their teachers at school. They're just neglected by the adults around them, the community around them. So what do outsiders do most of the time? Well, we glamorise the lifestyle of Ned Kelly and his family. When you're outlaws, you're outlaws. You don't follow the rules. You go do your own thing. And that's the thing, we glamorise Ned Kelly and the bushrangers of so long ago, and these kids are basically following in this fella's footsteps, but they're not receiving the same praise. They're not receiving the same idolisation. Why? Who knows why? People just pick and choose what they want to support. You know what I mean? And Townsville, as most people would know in North Queensland, but as well as just around the state, Townsville is one of the racist cities, towns, whatever you want to call Townsville, is one of the racist places in the country, possibly even the world. Who knows? But, like I said, most of these kids that are committing these crimes are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. You're not going to get past that. But not all of them are. Okay, but let me go back to the self-destructive approach that I wanted to yarn about. Like I said before, you can't punish a person that likes punishment, that likes pain. Okay? So when they say harsher punishments on kids that that do the crime, well, it's not going to work. You got to stop where the pain is starting from. And that's in the home. That's in family systems. That's within friend groups. It's not just something that happens at home, because these kids could come from a great home. These kids could have both parents at home working and trying to support their kids at home. But when they get into friends groups, they're peer pressured into doing something they're not wanting to do. Or not wanting to do, but they're not used to doing. They're exploring, okay? So, like I said, you can't punish a young person that's been through so much pain already. You have to stop where the pain is. And that's the thing. The government puts so much band-aid solutions over everything here in Townsville in terms of youth crime. And it doesn't work. Oh no, what can we do? Oh, okay, we'll give 30 million to the police force to harden up these kids. It's not going to work. Because when these kids commit the crimes, it's usually the final outcome of a build-up of so much neglect and injustice in their life. It may seem as though I'm ranting. I am ranting. Living in this community and seeing so much shit happening, and it's going to continue to happen if we don't actually look at where these kids actually need help. They don't need help with punishment to stop crime. They need help in learning how to live life. They need learning on how to be loved. They need to learn how to feel wanted. It's something that I've had to grasp while working with these young people. I've always had that grasp of young people, whether they're black, white, whatever, whether they're different skin colours, whether they're different sexual orientations. It's like every young person deserves to feel love and grow up in a space where they can be themselves. And when you have a community like Townsville, most of these examples that I'll use is Townsville because that's the only community that I've ever known. And when you have a community like Townsville that's very industrialised, very military, very set in their ways, when you have these kids now that are not following the status quo of what they want or not growing up in the status quo that's considered the Australian dream, then of course there's going to be some cold shoulders turned toward these young people. And like I said, most of these kids are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. Us as blackfellas, we always yarn to our young people, you're always going to get the cold shoulder from our non-Indigenous counterparts because there's still that thought that we're dumber than them. So for those that are blessed and privileged enough to have strong role models at home, you're going to be hearing that every day where, no, you got to be better than these white people because we have to beat them at their own game. Okay, and I had a bit of, we had a small yarn about that in my last episode, but back onto it. Yeah, with how the government and the people in power are spending money on how to address youth crime, they're addressing it wrong. They think of these kids as criminals and nothing else, and that's where we're going wrong. And that's something too that I've come to realise, like, a few of the kids, I'd have to say probably over 50% of these kids, just over, are not even from Townsville. You know what I mean? Some of these kids are, they have families from different communities surrounding Townsville. Townsville is considered the big smoke to a lot of smaller communities around the area. So you get these families that move to Townsville with these young kids. They grow up here. They don't have the family structure straight away. Like, they may have mum and dad at home, but in the blackfella community, even in my own childhood experience, I grew up with single mum at home, but she had her older brother, she had her father, her mother, who lived in Cairns, always had us for school holidays. We had the opportunity to be around, most of our families, most of our senior family members. I was the youngest of the family for so long. I had an older sister. My mum had two brothers. Like I said, we all lived in Townsville. Townsville's not my traditional country. So I, pay respect to them every day. But, I was privileged enough to grow up in a town where my family had called home for so long before I was even born. And these kids don't get that. So what they miss out on, they may have just mum at home, but good ways. I'll give you a story. I was suspended from school, primary school, for fighting, right? My mum, who worked at the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Legal Service here in Townsville, she took me to the Curran police station. And, young fella, young big Will's crying, because I've been suspended. And, mum's telling the police fella to show me where I would end up if I don't change my behaviour. Because, if I continue to fight, I'm going to end up, in the watch house, behind bars, all that stuff. And then after the visit, me and mum are walking outside. I'm wiping my tears away because I think now, okay, I've gotten my punishment. Let's just go home and, have dinner. When we were walking out to my car, when we were walking out to the car, my mum turned around. She was like, "Oh, you think we're finished? We still have to see Uncle Sam first." So, for those who don't know, my Uncle Sam passed away a couple of years ago, but was my mum's oldest brother. So, he was big uncle. And when mum had told me that we're not done, we still have to go see Uncle Sam, the tears started up again. Okay. And the reason why that is because, yeah, the police fella was scary. But I didn't fear as much, just in terms of that punishment side. I didn't fear the police people as much as I feared Uncle Big Sam. And this is just something that happens, I'm not sure if it happens in non-Indigenous families, but in black families, there's always a big mum or a big dad, and that's literally the bigger, the eldest auntie of the family or the eldest uncle of the family that's within that area. They're usually the ones that run the family. You know what I mean? It's their word. So, I was able to grow up, like I said, single mum, but we had such strong supporting role, supporting cast behind mum is that, we couldn't backchat mum or, we couldn't run amok because we had those people in place that, that put us in line when we needed to be put in line. Now, going back to what I was saying, that all these families are moving from out of these smaller communities into Townsville, away from their families. These kids are growing up without their big mums, their big dads. So basically, their parents are out here by themselves. Whether, they may have a cousin here or something, but other than that, there's no hierarchy put in place. And when kids realise how much power they actually do have, well, when these young people realise how much power they do have in terms of all new legislation, that's when they click. Oh, you can't touch me. I'm going to go to the police. You can't do this to me. I'm going to go to child safety. I'm going to go. You know what I mean? And this is just the reality of what's happening. And this is just something that I've observed that I can probably attribute to a lot of this youth crime. You know what I mean? There's no family structure in the black community anymore. And that's due to just, the price of living is so high that people need to come to the bigger cities to get better opportunities to get jobs. But in Townsville, unemployment is so high. So parents aren't getting the jobs that they were probably thinking they were going to get when they were moving to Townsville. But as well as, it's just getting back on the youth crime because I feel like I veered off here. But that's just one of the areas where I feel as though it's one of the pathways leading to youth crime. So there are kids that come here from different communities. They move here without family structure. Okay. And of course with legislation they can do whatever they want to a certain age, of course. And they just run amok at home. And then they go out, run amok out in the community because they didn't get that family structure at home. Yeah, people talk about, let's punish them. Let's punish them more. Let's punish them more. Punishment not going to work. It never was going to work. Because you're just going to feed into that self-destructive approach that a lot of these young people do have. They're kamikazes out here, guys. They don't care. You know what I mean? That's why they continue to steal cars. That's why they continue to do all this stuff. And people would see me then as a soft approach and, you're the reason why these kids are doing all these things because you have to be hard on them. No, you don't have to be hard on these kids. You have to be realistic with them. You don't feed them lies about how life is because life is tough out here. You got to pay bills. You got to fucking pay taxes. And like I said, the price of living is getting so much higher and the wage is staying the same percentage. Of course, you don't have to be military hard on these kids. You have to be real with them. Because if you're not real with them and you're not showing them that that's your true self on how you're going to help them navigate through life, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to give you the time of day if you approach them how you approach kids is how you would approach humans. And people think that because they're younger and they're not allowed to vote or they don't have jobs, that they don't even deserve to be treated like human beings. That's where we're going wrong as a community. We're pushing these kids away because They may have committed a crime. And that's, like I said before, there's only a small percentage of kids that actually commit the crimes. But as a community, we're painting all young people that walk around the streets as criminals. So what do we do when we see them? We turn the cold shoulder. We don't say hello to them. We give them dirty looks. We make them feel unwanted, unwelcomed in the community that they've grown up in. You know, when I was a kid, I had to be home by the streetlights come on. As a kid, I guess you could say I was sheltered. I wasn't allowed to go late night and all that, but it was a safety thing. Because my mum and my uncles knew what kind of community I'll be growing up in, so they sheltered me from so much of the shit that happens here in Townsville, and something that I can pull from now because I've experienced it. I've experienced walking to a shopping centre and getting stares. You know, I've walked into a shopping centre people looking at me like I don't belong. I've been in Townsville for 20 years. Mobber's still moving to Townsville that have only been here for 2 months. I met a woman the other day that's only been here for 6 weeks. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. Just the way Townsville goes in terms of social media and community, they think they're doing nothing wrong to these kids. It's just the kids are doing wrong. Yeah, they're committing crimes. But like I said before, crime is the outcome of stuff that has been building up over time. Some of these kids are even part of the system. They don't even have parents at home. They're living in residentials and they're out committing crimes. Because, like I said again, I'm going to say it over and over again, guys, these kids have developed a self-destructive approach to life so early. You would think that young people would, like so many comments say, they're young. What are they doing this for? They should be at school. They should be at home. They don't have a home to go to, ma'am. They've been kicked out of school. Why? Who knows? School's not for every young person out there. Education is. School isn't. School is a system where if you're not this smart, you're not going to fit into life. If you can't do these standardised testing, you're not going to be ready for life. School, university work, it's basically a pipeline to create more workers and less thinkers. You know, I'm getting into more stuff now, but youth crime, and I'll probably end this episode here soon, but youth crime is definitely something that will continue to happen if we're putting our money in the wrong areas. Of course, I do understand that programs cost money. I do also realise that the government has put in $30 million into more policing here in Townsville, which means more policing, which means more harsher punishments. Not going to work. Like I said, these kids, I'm going to repeat it once more, self-destructive approach. Write that down. Write that down and look it up. Because once you realise these kids have a self-destructive approach and you read into it and you realise what's happening here in Townsville, the punishment, more harsh the punishment these kids are going to like. Because they don't care anymore. They don't care because they grow up in a community that doesn't care about them. They don't care anymore because they've grown up in a system that doesn't care about them. And I'm sick of it because while there's so many few of us that is actually working with these kids on the front lines, you know, there's, like I said, small percentage of us that are actually doing the work to help these kids get on the right track. They're only with us for a couple of hours a day until they go out in a community where all that hard work comes undone, basically, because we teach these kids, yeah, you're going to get this, you're going to get that, but, you know, they're going to go out in the community that continues to make them feel unwanted and unwelcome. So as soon as we change our whole community's mindset on how to approach these young people, mate, we can be laughing. We could probably have the best community in the world, but it's not the kids that's holding us back. It's the adults. Wake up to yourselves, guys. You're grown people, hair on your dins, hair on your backs, and you're treating these kids like they're common criminals. Yes, you know, you say, yes, let's get more policing here. We need more punishment. These kids need no, they don't need punishment. They need tender love and care. They need to feel welcomed. They need a space where they can just be themselves. And that's it. Something simple as just a center where they can just go and be themselves is what's needed. Because they're definitely not going to feel that at home. They're definitely not going to feel that in their friends group. They're going to have to feel it by adults that are strangers to them, that are of course qualified to work with these kids, but a place where they can go be themselves. A place where they can just forget about life, forget about their struggles that they've been to, and be a kid. Mate, I say all the time, I'd love to be a kid again. But then again, that's just, I grew up being a kid. I was the youngest of the family. I was able to go do shit. Of course, until I had my first shaving, I had to go through, initiation of becoming a man. But up until that point, I was pretty happy with my childhood at that point. You know what I mean? It's tough to see so many adults, so many grown people shun these kids away. And it's not necessarily because of they committed a crime, but because of what they look like, because of what music they listen to, because of what they dress like. Good ways. And some of these kids, depends on what these kids smell like too. You know what I mean? But then again, that comes from self-destructive approach. These kids are out here doing stuff because they're used to pain, whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual. They're used to being hurt. So what are they going to continue to do? They're going to continue to hurt themselves, whether it's stealing cars, stealing stuff from the shops, whether they're doing drugs at a young age, smoking, drinking, partying, or whatever. They don't care. They don't care. And that's something that's, of course I'm speaking from a place of privilege because I've been able to work with these kids. It's a blessing working with these kids because it helps you understand why they are what they are. You know what I mean? Why they do what they do. It teaches you the why when you're working with these kids. And if I can leave you with a message, guys, for those that do listen to me, it's like, if you see a kid out in the street, just say hello. Acknowledge their presence. You know what I mean? It takes something as simple as saying hello to change somebody's life. You can change somebody's life in a day by just saying hello to them. Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a long conversation. Hello, how you doing? You doing all right, mate? You staying, asking them, are you staying out of trouble? Oh yeah, of course. That's it. You don't have to harass them and do all this stuff. Do all this extra. No. Simple stuff. Keep it simple, stupid. I've learnt that since I was in bloody primary school. But yeah, that's my whole, my whole observation of this youth crime stuff that's happening in Townsville. And, that's something that I want to reiterate again. These kids, they have a self-destructive approach because they've developed it over years of neglect. And this is just not neglect from their family. I'm not blaming the families at all. It's a case-by-case thing. They're either developing it from neglect from their family, their friends group, even just the community they've grown up in. You know what I mean? But it's a case-by-case thing that we all need to learn about from each kid, from each young person. And once we get that down pat, once we figure out what these kids want, and like I said, it's not necessarily giving them what they want, it's listening to these kids. And I think I said earlier before, you have to be real with these kids. It's not necessarily you going in soft and just giving them what they want. No. It's going in soft as an active listener, listening to their struggles, listening to their story. And, being real with them. Because they can be like, I want to get my own place. Yes, that's a great goal, mate. That's great to have. I even tell them my story. I live by myself. It's amazing. But then you have to be real with them. Housing in Townsville is shit. It's expensive. It's ridiculous. And government housing has such a long waiting list. You're going to wait another couple of months, mate. So just hang on, and we can do what we can do. But, it's stuff we just have to learn and move on from. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's not necessarily giving these kids what they want. It's giving them what they want to hear. Oh, not what they want to hear, but, bringing them down to earth every now and again. Bring them down to, hey, look, it's awesome that you have goals. Let's write that down. But what steps do we have to take to achieve that? Because not everything's going to be given to you. You've got to work hard for it. And these are a few of the conversations I have with my young people. That's just life. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's basically all I can say today, guys. But definitely, if you see a young person out in your community tonight that that you think you may want to have a chat with them, have a chat with them. And of course, if they don't want to yarn with you, they don't want to yarn with you. That's it. Some people don't want to talk to you. Grow up. Who cares? Move on. But yeah, guys, that's my little rant for today. I guess for this week as well. I just want to send my love and condolences out to the families of the young person that was found in the Ross River the other day. Like I said, even though it is a life lost, that's a young life lost, a future lost. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But if we continue going down the path that we are, where we continue to pay for the punishment, it's not going to fly. It's not going to change the environment, or it's not going to change the approach that these kids have to life, which is what? Self-destructive approach, guys. Listen, write that down. Self-destructive approach. These kids will continue to hurt themselves and others because that's all they know. It's all they know. Pain is everything that they know. So they'll continue to do it because they think it's normal. So yeah, that's my whole approach, my whole mindset and observations of the youth crime here in Townsville and how we can combat that. But yeah, thank you for listening to me today, guys. Hopefully we'll be able to crack more milestones in terms of the subscriber count. Thank you for all your continued support and love from all of you guys. I guess you know who you are, so I can't name all the names because that'd just take a whole nother episode. But thanks, guys. Peace and love, and stay safe.